What's up, weebs? Welcome to Anime Lane, a brand new podcast where we're going to take you down the yellow brick road of anime and discuss everything it has to offer. Today, I am joined by...
Hi, I'm Melina.
And I'm Shaun.
I am Rebel Notorious. These guys will just call me Michael. Don't choose your screen names when you're 15, please. So, I want to kick it off by getting a grasp on where... Before we watched what we are going to discuss in this episode, what was your guys' experience with anime before this?
You want to go first?
Sure.
I feel like you've got a simpler history, so I can just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you consider Pokemon anime, that's what I watched.
I mean,
yeah.
it's not if you consider it, it categorically is an anime.
I feel like it's not generally put in a category. If you ask someone, oh, you like anime? It's like, I love Pokemon.
I mean, some people will say that.
Yeah, but...
I feel like just in, like, the culture.
Yeah, it's not the one I hear getting brought up in forums and discords and stuff like that very often.
Yeah.
But, you know, it still is.
Too casual.
So, like, after that, none. But my brother is really into anime, and so I think twice he's been like, you must watch this.
I know you've mentioned this before.
Be interested in my hobbies,
Yeah.
and I did not have a good time.
So what did he show you, if you can remember?
I think it was Your Name and...
A silent voice.
Oh, yeah, it was a silent voice, I think, yeah. Silent
Were you
voice.
her brother?
No, I feel like we've spoken about a silent voice before, yeah.
So a silent voice, and I think I watched Paprika.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's totally unexpected.
I don't know what that is.
And that's not a great film to just show someone who is uninitiated.
No, because I think he showed because there is a popular movie. Inception was heavily inspired by it. So I think that he wanted us to like it really bad. He's like, well, you enjoyed Inception, so you might enjoy this, and then no one did.
That's the thing is like that's directed by a guy called Satoshi Kon, who's unfortunately no longer with us. But he also directed Perfect Blue and a couple other movies, and basically he's had a much bigger impact on Western cinema than pretty much anyone realizes, because his cinematography in general has influenced Darren Aronofsky. So if you watch, I think it's Black Swan was made shortly after his Perfect Blue live action adaptation was cancelled. So there's a lot... No, sorry, this is Requiem for a Dream. So there's a lot of similarities, and obviously Paprika influenced Inception. It's also a fucking bonkers movie.
Like, I don't remember much because it's a while ago, but I just remember being very confused and be like, what the fuck
There's a lot
happening?
of dream things going on, so
Yeah.
it's, you know, that sets the general idea, and it's
Yeah.
anime, so you can go far and above what Inception does. So Shaun, what's your experience?
Well, I mean, I watched Pokemon as well.
Of course,
like,
everyone's
I think
pretty much
everyone's watched Pokemon at some point in our generation.
Yeah.
But, after that, my anime experience isn't as expansive. But I'm mainly defined of like just sort of learning about anime through osmosis from like friends and like just general hearsay on the internet and stuff. So I know more about anime than I'm probably proud of, and I probably should be.
I mean, you're friends with me, so it comes through a lot of that.
So I'm not a weeb, but a lot of my friends are weebs.
Yeah, and you've also seen JoJo's, which
I mean, I'm watching that with mates, and like since the time we're recording this, it's still in specific times.
Yes.
Can we mention that there?
It's fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
in the time of COVID,
Yeah.
it's a show that I only watch with mates, with those mates specifically. So I'm only up to the start of Stardust Crusaders, and I have been for months.
Yeah.
But so I could say I'm like a mini weeb, but not quite there yet.
You dabble.
I dabble, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think of JoJo's? I know we've spoken about this, but for the sake of the podcast,
I really liked it actually.
I'm surprised. What did you think of part 1? So like the original Jonathan. You know?
Part 1 it's more standard in like its story, but I did like it.
Yeah.
I did have genuine enjoyment from it, especially Dio.
Dio's pretty much the thing that carries it.
He's such a sadistic bastard at the beginning that you sort of get pulled in, and then he becomes a vampire, and it's like it gets even weirder after that.
I don't know if I mentioned this when I read so I've seen all of the current JoJo's anime, and I read the manga like a couple of months ago, and I don't know if I mentioned that when I was reading part 1 that like Araki fully admits that he just wanted to write about Dio, so had to create everything else around him, and he was like, well, Dio can't be the protagonist, so he had to create Jonathan, who is such a cardboard cutout of a character.
Yeah, we did talk about that. I remember that. Part 2, on the other hand, is far better.
Oh, it goes in. Part 2 is probably like. I know everyone talks about how weird JoJo's is, but I think part 2 is like the bizarrest. Part.
It is the bizarre adventure. There are fucking immortal pillar men with Nazis and a JoJo from New York who punches racists and is awesome.
Is it like, classic Italian-American New York? Or?
No, I mean...
No,
not
he's...
really. He's like the sort of like... I mean, it takes place in the 30s.
Uh-huh.
But like, he's the sort of... ladies man?
Yeah, he's
rough kid in New York, sort of like
yeah,
Aladdin style hero, but more adult.
Yeah, he's a strange middle ground of like not the nothing character of Jonathan, but also not the like archetype buff man that Jotaro is.
I mean, at one point he does like the pose where it's like he goes like the most feminine sort of.
Yeah.
But he's still the manly man JoJo.
Yeah, Joseph's probably still one of my favourite JoJos so far.
As far as I have seen, he is by far the best JoJo, which isn't saying much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Jotaro's going to dethrone him.
No, because he's just an absolute arsehole. I it's not that I actively dislike him, it's more like he just doesn't jive with me.
Yeah,
except for his like outfit that jives with me.
Yeah, I like his outfit, and it's funny because I remember starting Stardust Crusaders and going, oh, there's nothing to do with trains here. And because he looks like a train conductor.
He's just a conductor, and that's just what he likes to dress like.
Yeah.
Which I can respect. It's too bad he's a fucking arsehole.
Yeah, this is the thing is, like, for Stardust Crusaders, Jotaro did nothing for me. I really didn't like him that much. But in part 4 and then later in part 6, he's vastly improved. I mean, in part 4, he's pretty much a Deus Ex Machina character. He literally shows up just to have things go everyone's way.
Yeah. Which I was scared Joseph would be in Stardust Crusaders.
Oh,
it looks like he's an actual character.
Yeah, he's an actual character, and I'd say that he's sort of not useless, but he has one of like the most useless stands.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't have much purpose.
What was his again?
His is Purple Hermit, which can, if he hits a camera or a television, can show the location of like Dio.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Apparently he
it's
can
so
also
specific,
like yeah, he can also use like vines later on, I think, but that never really comes up again. I mean, he's like 80 by the time part 4 rolls around.
I mean, he's like full on. I want to say Old Man Logan, even though he's not the character.
He's
at all.
He's not Daddy Joseph, and in Stardust, he's more Granddaddy Joseph.
I want that on quotes, by the way, as this is the famous quote of the episode. This episode is dedicated to Granddaddy Joseph.
What a way to start. Yeah, so you two are fairly new to all of this, whereas like I'm so far down the rabbit hole. Like, all of this stuff here on the table is mine.
We are your Padawans.
Yeah, you're my Padawans, and so it was strange because when we started talking about doing this, I had no idea where to start. Like, there's so much I could show you that you become overwhelmed. So the three main topics we're going to be discussing today is the infamously dubbed Ghost Stories, Hayao Miyazaki's theatrical debut, Lupin III, Castle of Cagliostro, or Cagliostro as they pronounce it in the movie.
I've been calling it Cagliostro.
Same, I've seen the movie multiple times, I still call it Cagliostro, and Mamoru Oshii's seminal masterpiece, Ghost in the Shell. So spoilers for all of those if you haven't seen any of them, but they're like cultural touchstones of anime, so...
We're going to be discussing anime, like, in depth, so you should expect spoilers for any of these topics that we go into.
Definitely. So I think we'll start with Ghost Stories, 'cause I think this is the one that we've had, like, the least amount of enjoyment watching.
I will say there should be an asterisk on this topic, because we say we've not watched the full thing.
No, okay,
None of us have watched the full thing.
basically, I think there'll be spoilers for about 6 episodes because Melina's actually the one who's watched the most. I've then watched 3 episodes and Shaun only watched the one.
I was going to watch more, but I had good reasons not to.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't regret it.
No, I don't blame you for only watching the one. I almost tapped out at the first episode as well. So I think before we get in depth into the conversation, I think I should give context for the series because it's such a peculiar... set of
something.
So
there is such an interesting story there. You have to if you're talking about it.
So this came out in Japan in 2000, funnily enough, and it lasted for 19 episodes on air with 1 extra episode on the home video release. But basically, what happened was it did so badly in Japan that when it came over here, I want to say that this is the hearsay story. Like, this is, like, even... I mean, the English VAs even perpetuate this story, but I don't know the caliber of truth to this. Yeah. So
it's hearsay, but, like, we've got nothing better to construct it on.
Like, this is the legend that surrounds it, basically.
The most official story we have.
So, basically, it did so badly in Japan that when... I think it was ADV Films were bringing it over... they basically were told, don't bother translating the Japanese scripts for the English dub, just do whatever you want to make it sell. So they basically did a kind of ad-libbed dub where, like, whoever showed up first to the studio got to kind of pick the tone and like, start things off, essentially. And that led to what a lot of people cite as being very funny, but I don't think those people have watched it since it originally came out, and I want to say about 2005.
It is a product of its time.
It is very much a product of time, yeah.
Very
so
much.
I'm trying to check here when the dub came out. I think roughly, I want to say around 2005.
That's what it felt like to me when I was watching it, even just the first episode.
So they had ADV, yep, that's correct. I was writing who I thought dubbed it. Announced in October 2004 they had it, and then they released it on 5 DVDs, 5 DVD volumes between 2005 and 2006. So it's very much a product of that era because, there's a lot of... there's a recurring...
Slurs?
Yes. Ones that have definitely become slurs now.
At some point I was watching it, like, okay, next episode. What slur is gonna just thrown out?
Because the first episode starts with a character who recurs. Well, I mean, she's part of the main cast. She's in pretty much every episode. Who is like a born again Christian who hates gay people.
Yeah.
And that certainly hasn't aged well in the slightest.
No.
I mean, other than that, the first episode is like nothing happened. Well, things happen, but like there's nothing memorable about it.
Yeah, like the born again Christian part is probably the most out there it goes.
And I think it's this case of like, outrageous humor was what South Park was big at the time, and all that sort of thing. So I think that's what they were trying to tap into that vein.
It's weird though because funnily enough, I've been watching. This is not anime, I know, but I've been watching a lot of like South Park recently, just as background noise, and it's South Park, and you shouldn't come to expect it. It somehow it aged way better.
This is the thing,
given
though,
its whole thing, though, it's weird.
For all that South Park is crude and crass humor, it's well written.
It's intelligent.
Yes, there
absolutely
is
an intelligence there, which is weird to say for a show that has Mr. Hanky the Christmas Pooh.
But
but it couldn't succeed and continue for 20 odd seasons if it wasn't. Sorry, I cut you off there, Melina.
I just wanted to say, like, they make it with the intent. Like, you can tell in everything from the production and the writing to, the eventual jokes. It's meant to be very crass.
Yeah.
And when, you go in thinking that's what it's going to be, it doesn't catch you off guard as much as these very, young children being like, look at this lesbian here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's my mom. She used to be a lesbian.
Yeah, like
okay.
The biggest yikes moment I saw I heard from the first episode is just like when they open like the book with like the principal, I think, and it's supposed to be her mum or grandma. Because they mentioned at the beginning of the episode that like the
That's
grandma looks a lot like her mom. Sorry, I'm cutting you off.
In the dubbed version, it's the mom. In the non-dubbed version, it's the grandma.
Oh, so they just totally changed it.
Because the thing is, like, the husband says, "Oh, I met your mother at the schoolhouse," which I first of all thought was a very weird term. I don't know if it's a British thing, like the term a schoolhouse.
Schoolhouse, that's very much just a Japanese thing in general.
Like we wouldn't call it a schoolhouse.
No. Yeah, and so the dad says something, I think, along the lines of, "I met your mother at the schoolhouse," but then they went away. And so they say it's your grandmother.
Right, okay.
That was the principal.
Uh-huh.
I mean, at this point I might be wrong because it's just a clusterfuck in my head.
I don't think the series was particularly well written originally. And I can see that even, watching the dub, like the DNA of the show is still the same. And it's like, it's cookie cutter ghost show that doesn't have much going for it, I don't think.
If it was in its original form, I can imagine myself putting it on as like a very much a background noise sort of thing.
I don't even think I would.
I'd
watch a couple of episodes and I think I'd have the same reaction. I always give something like 3 episodes. If it doesn't catch me, that's it. Or well, depending on the length of the series. But like, I think that this would have been a thing. I watched like 3 episodes and I'd be like, nah, I'm done. Because it to me it doesn't have much to really. It's so much just a product of its time. It is so much that era of animation and character designs, and I hate to admit that doesn't generally appeal to me that much. I'm very much kind of 90s before, 10s after. That era of the 2000s it's a lot of it doesn't really appeal to me.
It feels a lot more, surprisingly enough, from what I've seen and from the general vibe I get, it feels a lot rougher.
Yeah, a lot of stuff from that era is, this is 2000s, and then like 2000 through 2005 is a very rough era for anime because it was that transition to digital. So you have a lot of stuff that was animated at, and very just like a sort of Wild West time of transitioning to the new technology that a lot of it's aged like milk.
Yeah.
So for me, the show itself hasn't aged particularly well, but then the dub is oh my god, because I can't remember anything about the second episode. I can only remember the first and the third, and
Did you guys see the piano? Was it? I don't know if it's like in the first 3 or 4 to 6 because I watched them on separate days.
I didn't see any
was
piano.
Was it for Elise? Like it would slow down, and once you heard it 7 times, it would kill you. But
that's definitely beyond what I've seen because the second episode is the haunted toilet.
Oh yeah. But I laughed my ass off at the piano episode because you don't see the ghost thing. So it's just. Imagine a grand piano following a little girl around.
Oh my god!
And it's hilarious because they made no effort to make it look scary, so it's legit a piano just kind of rolling after
so
this poor
it's
girl.
not even like a Mario 64 sort of piano with teeth chomping at you thing. It's literally just a piano.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Okay. I'm gonna have to watch more episodes now, so I want to see that.
It's great because she can hear it because it's the main girl. I don't remember her name. Because another point is all the main characters' names are very Japanese and they made an effort to pronounce it. But whenever they had like side characters that didn't matter, it was like, "Hey Johnny."
Hello Jacob.
That's the thing. I don't remember any of the characters' names at all. I just know that there was a lot of jokes about the main girl being in like a training bra, and I'm like, oh
Jesus
no.
Christ.
It gets worse. Like almost every episode has a moment where she flashes the guy, and he has to comment on the style of panty she's wearing.
Yeah, I remember that from like the first or second episode.
Yeah, definitely the first.
I remember 3 times it happening over 6 episodes. It could be that it's more. She's also constantly telling her, "You're fat. You're so heavy. You're fat."
Oh my god.
And yeah, the whole training bra situation. Like, at some point, they make a wish, and she's like, "I wish we'll get bigger boobs."
And he wishes to touch them. That's the third episode. Because the third episode is probably, like, the part where I knew I'm done. Because it has... Yeah, it has the Phantom of the Ghost Opera, as they call it. Even though they...
by Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Which they directly reference Andrew Lloyd Webber. But basically the whole premise is like there's a set of stairs that if you sit on like the fourth one, you become cursed or you fulfill a wish.
If you make a wish or just, you know, say, I wish I could do this, like it will come true, but it's only the fourth step.
So he, like one of the main cast who's like the nerd, I want to say, is like their archetype. Make sure you
mention he's Jewish.
Oh yeah, he's Jewish.
Yes, he is.
They made him Jewish in the dub. Yeah,
I remember that.
The amount of oy veys in this show. They kept mentioning it. I'm like, I don't think this is in, you know, the original.
It wouldn't have been. I mean, I don't think the girl who's like a born again Christian or him being Jewish, that would not have been in the original, just because they don't really dabble in that sort of.
Okay, I did want to, like, the main thing that made me want to see the original was that born again Christian girl, because I was like, they are really holding on to this character to the point where it almost feels like that's the original intent.
No, I don't think so. Like, I just think it's very much like those feel like products of an American, production. Japan doesn't really touch on that sort of religion, and even if,
unless it's Final Fantasy.
Well, there is Final Fantasy, but that's like a separate thing in and of itself.
It's a whole other like platform. Hold on.
It's another medium.
That's the word I was thinking of.
Even though there has been anime attempts with Final Fantasy that's
I just can't imagine that working, but sorry.
Derailing. Even if they do kind of hint at religion, it's in a very subtextual or symbolic manner. They'll never beat you over the head with, a character being of a certain religion.
Go straight to hell if you're not gonna choose the Lord's way.
Not to dump on like media from our hemisphere or anything, but a lot of our writing when it comes to religion and more sensitive topics is very surface level and on the nose, whereas I think if anime tries to tackle it, it's like I suppose it's also a form of the medium where like you can be a lot more subtextual, you can be a lot more subtle with it. You kind of just have to trust in your audience, which is something Hollywood is not great at.
No, because it was one of the things I also checked, because when I watched the non-dub version, I was like, because they have a line where they find a picture of the grandma/mother, whatever, and the girl says, "Oh, I recognize her." And she says, I recognize this lesbian from gay conversion therapy.
Which comes out the fuck out of nowhere.
I was like, no way.
Yeah.
No way. So in the non-dub version, she met her at a hospital.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's no way that would be in the original. Like I said, they had a lot of creative liberty in how they dubbed this. Especially because, in the third episode is where they bring out the R word in reference to the little brother.
And that, from the clips I've seen, because
it's a recurrent thing.
I have seen clips of the show, which I feel like most people that know about the show have seen the vast majority of stuff in those like YouTube clips that show the most outrageous stuff. Yeah. That word gets used a lot.
Oh yeah, it's like a recurring thing for not just her brother, but I think, they throw it out there a lot. Because at that point in time, I think it was generally more not accepted, but
it wasn't as much of a taboo slur as it is now.
I don't think that happened until the sort of early 2010s that
we grew as a society.
Exactly. I have seen clips from later on. There's an episode where like something to do with the not the radio club, but like there's definitely something to do with like a sound room or something, and like there's this recurring joke about a teacher being like a slut and stuff like that. And
I have seen clips of that.
I think we watched that clip all together. Because
long time ago now.
We watched some clips before we ended up watching the show. I think it was off the back of those clips that we decided, we have to at least try this. Yeah. I think it's maybe something I'd continue if we were watching it together. Yeah. But I don't. It's one of those things where like it's a bit, because of how the humor's aged, it's a bit uncomfortable to watch with other people, because if I laugh, I'm more laughing out of
uncomfortableness.
Yeah, uncomfortableness, or knowing that, oh, that wouldn't fly today. I'm not laughing at the actual joke itself, because when I was watching it on my own, I didn't laugh once at the series.
Just the fact that we don't hear it anymore, thank
God.
Uh-huh. And so when you do hear it, you're like, what?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I mean, you watched it with your boyfriend, so I assume you maybe had a couple of laughs, but watching it on my own, I was like, fucking just deadpan the entire time.
Shock laughter.
Yeah, 100%.
They do this?
Yeah.
The only time I laughed, which was the one time with the "Do you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior?" Mainly just by how fast she says that.
Yeah.
Like, that's impressive and funny.
There's a lot of lines throughout that show where, like, they clearly wanted to shoehorn in a joke, so they just speed through a line.
And that's funny. Like,
it's sort of funny,
really funny. And the second one, which I'm kind of ashamed of, but when I say I laughed, it was more of a really uncomfortable, jeez, was the born again Christian girl, when they're looking at, like, the principal, she says something along the lines of, like, oh yeah, lesbian, I mean woman. Yeah. Like, that's just a weird thing to say. So I sort of just had an uncomfortable laugh at that, like, oh.
Yeah. I think the only time I really laughed is like whenever the brother's kind of on screen, it's like he'll have one intelligible line of dialogue.
That made me laugh.
To talk about this.
And then it
gets so much worse. like he's not even in the shot, and in the background he's like,
that happens in the first episode too. I was like, you laugh at that, but then you go, shut the fuck up.
It gets really funny because, like, I understand he's crying on screen, but when he's nowhere on the screen and they don't turn it down either.
Yeah, he's just still, like, right there.
We came to the conclusion he kind of sounds like Toad.
Oh, yes! Oh my god, yeah! Because I don't know how we've gone this long, we'll talk about the show, but the cat is a dead, like, I was not spitting image, but the voice is almost identical to Salem the cat.
It's kind
from
of a splitting
Sabrina.
Image, even. Like,
yeah. I mean, the design-wise,
not
I think...
to say all black cats look the same.
No, I mean, I think the designs may be playing off more of, I think it's Luna from Sailor Moon.
I did think Luna as well. That was actually going to be my first joke when I talked about it with you like that, but Salem came up instead because that was more like the character of Salem. Yeah,
the characterization and the voice are very, like, identical to Salem from the Sabrina live action series from the 90s or something.
Yeah, which I've weirdly enough seen.
I've seen it. Yeah, I grew up watching it.
I never grew up with it. I saw it on TV just a while ago. I didn't even really know it existed, to be fair.
The Netflix version's not as good, I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
Salem doesn't talk, for one.
Stupid.
But yeah, I feel like we've exhausted everything we can say about ghost stories.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else, because I love folklore stories a lot. I think they're very fascinating, especially when you look like, in context.
I think that this is something that could have had potential because, it focuses on that kind of very particular Japanese folklore.
Yeah.
But the execution, I think, is just what lets it down.
It's like a very Americanized version of an anime. Like, there were things where they mentioned, like, we're taking down the mountain and we're gonna build a Walmart.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Good.
It's like, this is gonna be a Walmart parking lot, and it's like, what?
Like, in the same episode, I think, the guy's like, I have to go to the bathroom. I am Mexican for lunch. I'm like,
that's right. Because I think that's the cursed toilet episode.
The toilet episode. You missed out on the toilet
I
episode.
missed out on a lot.
Because they have to go into the toilet to, like, rescue him.
Oh, is it like Train Spotting where, like, he just goes right in?
So it's like, basically, I think the toilets in the main, like, new school building end up going out of commission, so they have to use the one in the old school building, and it's like a very traditional old school Japanese toilet where you kind of, like, squat over it, and it's like just in the floor.
Just a hole in the ground.
Yeah, and it asks you red or blue.
Yeah.
And if you answer incorrectly, it'll, like...
But, like, red, it was like, blood will rain from the skies. Blue, I will strangle you till you turn blue. And then someone just...
Green.
Yellow?
Yellow.
And I was like, he's gonna get drowned in piss for sure.
Yeah, that's like my immediate reaction to yellow.
Yeah. It's just a strange series.
At that point, just hold it in.
Yeah.
there is a part of enjoyment for me, but it's mostly just in hearing the batshit crazy.
I feel like it's almost like it's flipped round into like an ironic sense of enjoyment from it. Now you're not enjoying it because of
it's good.
the content in it, or it's good. You know, you're enjoying it because you can't believe that they actually did this, and committed to putting that in the show. So anyway, I think we'll move on to Lupin.
We can get to the actual real discussion.
Yeah, so I think this is where these are the ones that I think we all enjoyed.
We watched together.
So we watched Lupin III Castle of Cagliostro last time that we saw each other in person. I think I got the impression that, or Shaun definitely enjoyed it.
That was a really good movie.
Yeah, I was surprised by how much you liked it.
I was surprised as well, because when we started it, I mean, you said that it was. Did you say it was like lighthearted or?
As far as Lupin as a series goes, this is like the most lighthearted I think it gets.
Yeah. I got the vibe like beforehand that you mentioned it was like a sort of fun movie. Which
it is.
I enjoy. I'm fun in a movie. If I'm having fun watching a movie, that's a good movie to me. But like it hits sort of the notes in like a sort of movie from like an anime movie that I really like.
Yeah.
So I was shocked about that as well.
I mean, it's directed by Miyazaki, so it has his handprint all over it. Because this was his first ever, theatrical production, and then this came out in 79, so like 6 years later, I think, is when he done Nausicaa, and then obviously Ghibli.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Afterwards, so this was like his big break, so to speak, and I think it definitely did well. It's become. I think everything I've picked is somehow part of the anime culture.
Yeah, they're like not cornerstones. Would that be?
Yeah, I'd say so. I try to avoid picking like I try to avoid picking everything being a pillar. So I wouldn't say this is a pillar so much as like it forms the floor.
Yeah.
So like if Ghost in the Shell's a pillar, Akira is as well.
Like it lightly defined, but it's heavily defined.
So like Ghost in the Shell and Akira very much define anime in the West, and then you've got Lupin, you've got Castle of Cagliostro, which is like the floor that's made from those pillars. A weird analogy.
No, I think it makes sense.
But yeah, no, I was surprised by how much fun you had. You were very vocal that you had a lot of fun.
I was loving that movie. I'm not even sure if it was because we were all watching it or but because like a sort of weakness I can have for a movie is that if I see something to like maybe not point fun of, but like something to like
joke about,
I will do it, and
no,
a lot of the times it's a weakness, and I hate myself for it.
Look,
a lot. But
if it's the right moment, if it's not like, for example, old Logan dying. Like,
I try not to do heavy story scenes if I'm doing that.
I mean, to be fair, I think I remember when Fujiko like first like strips off, and not strips off her clothes, but like to
she takes off like the disguise she's wearing into something else, and like.
And we all I think it was Melina went, "Whoa, you didn't need to do that."
I had that thought because we rewatched these as well just before. Like the night before we filmed this, and I did the exact same thing. Like the second time she does it, she's in like a news reporter.
She doesn't actually. That's the time where she doesn't have to.
Yeah, she does the stereotypical like stripper sort of like takeoff, and I'm like, whoa, girl, now's not the time. There's a camera there. Although that is immediately followed up with possibly my favorite part of the entire movie,
where she just shoots someone.
Where like I got. And Amuk comes down, like, and just without any hesitation, she just immediately shoots someone, goes right back to reporting, or fake reporting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, straight professionalism. It is such a good 5 seconds. I love it.
For how little she's in the movie, she certainly carries like a certain weight for the film.
I mean, you remember right after that finished, I was like, she needs her own series or movie.
And that's when I went, hey, I have the right thing for you.
It turns out she did.
Yes, there's one called Women Called Fujiko Mine, which was like 2012 or something. It's very dark, different animation style. The opening features many titties. Just have to put it out there.
We can talk about this more in Ghost in the Shell.
For both Ghost in the Shell and Fujiko Mine, I'd say it's a tasteful thing. Like the whole opening is, I think, it's not directly like quoting Wuthering Heights, but like it's a sort of play on that type of thing, because it's a lot about her kind of like backstory as a character and like her life in general, and like, you know, being a troubled child and not having a great parents. I think I haven't seen the series in a while, but yeah, it's just it's different from this. Like that's
yeah. I mean, you've said like already that this is a lot more lighthearted, or just like a little bit lighthearted.
This is the thing, is like Lupin doesn't take itself too seriously, but this is like a different interpretation of the character.
Okay.
Because like in this, he's the hero.
Yeah.
And
creepy one.
Yes. We'll
yeah,
go into that in a bit.
Yeah. And most other Lupin films, he's a bit of an anti-hero. I'd say the only other one that really taps into what Cagliostro does is Lupin III the First, which is a hell of a title to say. But that's like a special movie, and that is like CG.
Yeah.
So it's like it taps into a bunch of different parts of the series. Part 3 I think aired in the 80s, so it's like it's 80s. So you know, but I'd say in general he's more of an anti-hero than he is a hero.
Okay.
So I think a lot of people watch this and then they try and watch other parts of the series and it maybe doesn't jive with them as well.
I was gonna say I'm scared that might be happening to me if I try and watch more stuff. I mean, who knows? I might end up really like jiving with both.
Yeah.
But I hope watching this first hasn't like given me a specific.
Yeah, I think that was my concern with watching Cagliostro first, but then I really enjoyed Fujiko Mine, which I'd say is like, if there's a scale, like most of Lupin is in the middle, then this is like on Cagliostro is on this side of like lighthearted, and then Fujiko Mine is on this side of darkness.
Okay, cool.
Because when I say it's dark, I mean both thematically and quite aesthetically. It's literally quite dark.
I mean, from the art style, from seeing, just because you showed like the art book, I think was it that movie?
Yeah, that was for the series.
From just the sketches alone, I could sort of tell that like, okay, there's more shading.
Yeah, it's got a rougher art style, and there's a lot more kind of darker color palette.
Yeah,
used.
I could tell that even like there. So
I think even just looking at the front cover of the box, you kind of get that vibe. It's, you know, this is very bright and colorful. And then like it's kind of washed out for Fujiko Mine. So yeah, very fun movie. I've always enjoyed.
Yeah,
this.
it was really fun to watch, and I liked that.
So I should mention there's two dubs, and obviously the original Japanese version. We watched the second dub because it was originally dubbed by Streamline Pictures, and then Manga Entertainment later in 2000, which featured David Hayter as Lupin. Probably one of my favourite people to voice Lupin. I think he's mainly voiced by a guy called Tony Oliver now. But the other Cagliostro, I haven't mentioned this. But so the full character's name is Arsène Lupin III, who is a reference to a French character called Arsène Lupin, who you maybe only really know from like Sherlock Holmes versus Lupin.
Okay.
He's
actually,
a very.
I have heard of that. Actually.
He's basically the French version of. Well, he's the opposite of Sherlock in that sense, where he is a master thief and stuff. Yeah, he's like a mirror. He is a very real character. From. I don't know when the books were written, but basically because of this, Monkey Punch, the original author of the manga, didn't go seeking permission for the character.
Oh, fuck that.
So this, Lupin III is meant to be his grandson, and that meant that when, early on when they were bringing over some of them, they couldn't use the name Lupin. They could use it on like the box art, but they couldn't call the character Lupin. So in the other Cagliostro dub, he's called Wolf.
Oh,
that's wrong.
Yeah.
That screams like Xbox gamer tag energy.
So they didn't rename any other character.
Not even like Goemon.
No, not Goemon, who I think is based on like a Japanese legend. I want to say.
I did look him up after because he's rewatching it last night, and
Goemon something like he has a number as well. He has like a number attached to his name.
Yeah.
I think that would mean that I forgot his name. Shit, he's my like favorite character from the series. Oh, with the gun.
I don't know the names.
Why am I totally blanking on this?
Detective?
No, not the detective. Man? Beard guy.
Hold on. Him.
Yeah, him.
I can't remember his name either.
I'm so annoyed. I know his voice actor is Richard Epcar, because he's like the most consistent voice actor from the series.
That makes weirdly a lot of sense for his character.
He's also the English dub voice of Bato from Ghost in the Shell.
That makes a lot of sense.
It does make a lot of sense, doesn't it?
I did think, like, as I was rewatching this, like, wow, that character and this character are a little bit similar.
Yeah. I'm totally Jigen, Daisuke Jigen.
Yeah.
I think that makes him like the most original character then, because obviously Goemon and Lupin are based on previously established people.
What about Gustav?
Yeah.
Sorry to jump that in there. We had to talk about Gustav at some point. The MVP of the whole movie.
This is the thing. Is like it's such a strange like cultural mishmash that goes on in the movie. You've got very European, like a lot of different kind of influences going on, and then you've just got Zenigata coming in with the Japanese police.
Yeah, like in my head, like is the whole country called Castle?
I think it's officially considered a state or something like that. So I would assume it's like a duchy type thing.
I've been thinking of it as like an independent country, because in my head it's more like Liechtenstein. Liechtenstein. Very sorry to anyone from there listening into this, but
you're probably used to it.
So sorry, but that's like the sort of country I'm thinking of in my head, because that's like right next to France. And and it's tiny. But then you've got Gustav, who's very German. And I'd say like there's a and I don't know if this is just because like there's something about Lupin that's always resonated with like the Italian audience, to the point that Part 4 has its own Italian version.
I wanted to bring this up because I told my girlfriend, I watched Lupin Castle of Cagliostro. I watched it so much as a kid. I was like,
this slipped my mind so many times. I meant to ask you if your boyfriend knew anything about it, because it does so well in Italy, and I can't fathom why. Like, it just does. It's almost like Dragon Ball here is quite big, but it is nothing compared to the Latin
countries.
Latin American. Yeah. Well, not Latin American, but like Spain and then like South America.
No, that includes France.
I
was gonna say Romance language countries.
Yeah,
that
sort of.
France.
Mexican, Spanish. Those sort of. They are mad for it. Like it's massive compared to here, which it's like it's one of the foundations.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't really get the.
I didn't really ask why and such, but apparently it's just a common thing. Everyone's seen it when they grew up. I mean, it came out like 79, so a lot of people grew up with it. I don't know if it's as popular now.
Well, I think they done TV specials for a long time, and they still do. It's like every year there's a TV special of Lupin, but like in terms of TV series, Part 3 was the last one for a long time, so that finished in the 80s, and then in 2014 or 2015 they brought it back for another TV series, and it aired first in Italy. It didn't air in Japan first, it aired in Italy with like its own set of like credits, its own set of like opening themes, character introductions, to the point that like the English dub version is based on that, but then there's also the Japanese version, which is subtitled, so you can't buy, that has everything on one disc. You can't buy a Part 4 set with both English and Japanese on it. You got to buy the dub version and the sub version. So I only have the dub version upstairs. That's the one that's on my shelf, because Part 4 subbed was just out of print for a long time here.
Wow.
Yeah, only recently came out, I think, in standard edition, because it was on limited edition
from
things.
That time.
Yeah. Again, it's something that just totally fascinates me, where like these things resonate.
It's like the classic sort of, to go outside of anime, it's like that, I will not say infamous, that classic like TV trope, to call it, of like Germans love David Hasselhoff.
Yeah, that's another weird one.
A product, we'll just call it that, is really popular in a foreign country, like way unexpectedly.
Yeah, so this is actually another thing recently has been a symptom of that. I don't know how to phrase this, but basically, so there's a series in Japan, a light novel series called In Another World with My Smartphone, And there was an anime adaptation however many years ago, and like I guess it does okay in Japan, but there's a second season being commissioned recently off the back of the fact that it does so well here. It sells so incredibly well in the English speaking territories that they've commissioned a second season off the back of that, which I think has to be one of the first times I've ever heard of that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I think part 4 was commissioned off the back of the Italian audience. But still, it's so weird to think that like something so culturally specific as anime is now being influenced by the wider world's, consumption of it.
Yeah.
That's so bizarre to me. We haven't actually talked about the content of Cagliostro yet.
I mean, this is just us, like, all the time. We start with a concept, and then we go on tangents, and then tangents of those tangents.
So, to get back to the story of Cagliostro, how would you... What did you think of that, if we focus on, like, each part of the film itself?
I keep using the word fun, and I don't want to keep using it. But it is a fun story. It's nice. It sort of bounces all over not all over the place. Like, I mean, like, location-wise. Because you start out the movie, there's no introduction to character or anything. The movie just starts, and they're already robbing a casino.
Still one of my favourite scenes of, like, animation and music.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is so amazingly timed with when
I love that jump.
The jump, and the way the music's timed, still absolutely fantastic.
It was at that moment I was like, oh, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
I'm using the word again. I'm going to try and limit myself to the word fun from this point out, because I just keep saying that over and over again.
I think that whole opening sequence where it's like, you see them come down and then the alarms go up, but then the music kind of comes in off the back of that. I think it's so well, like, timed and like, perfectly coordinated.
And then you've got, like, the guards coming in and, like, their diegetic sounds of, like, trying to catch them and stuff, and it's just nice.
Yeah, this was the thing of, like, sometimes it doesn't jump out to me, but for both Lupin and Ghost in the Shell, there's times where the sound design really pops for me. But yeah, no, so it opens with them, robbing a bank. They realise the money's fake.
And then just yeet it.
And just yeet it.
I mean, it's not like they even yeet it, it's just gone.
Yeah.
In the next scene.
And then they go to Cagliostro, because apparently Lupin knows that that's where the fake money's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, it's explained later on that, like, well, isn't it explained that, like, there's a legend that it comes from there?
I think so,
and it is explained later on that he's been there before trying to find it, which is where, like, he encounters the love interest of the movie.
Okay.
Who at the time is very young.
We're going. Should we go into this now?
Let's go, because I think this is everyone's kind of criticism of the movie, and it's.
Let's first establish, how old is Lupin supposed to be?
Lupin in the flashback, he's supposed to be like 19.
In the flashback.
I want to say, yeah.
Which means
he's like 29, because like 10 years have passed, or I want to say they say 10 years.
I think they're, again, very, like well, we
very
don't know
loose.
Exactly how old he is.
I took it as, like, 10 years.
Yeah, I would say he's, like, late 20s.
Yeah, so, like, he looks exactly the same in the flashback.
So the age, according to the Lupin Wiki, is late 20s to early 30s, that's it.
Okay, let's, for his sake, say 29?
Yeah,
29.
Just to make this less bad for him.
Yeah.
Because, like, the girl...
I mean, she's
if you showed me
10.
a picture of her, I would say 13.
Oh yeah, 100%.
14.
So this is a sort of thing that I think, Miyazaki has a reputation as a great filmmaker, but also a grumpy old man.
Yeah.
But the thing is, a lot of the things he complains about when it comes to anime now are directly because of him. Because this whole, looking younger than their actual age, is practically stems from this movie.
Yeah,
Clarice is one of the original archetypes of that, and she's actually one of the original archetypes for what would eventually become the whole lolly thing.
Oh, God, no.
And it's Miyazaki that further reinforced that with other movies that he made. Obviously, other directors, writers, and mangaka took that and developed it into what it is now, but it's still his.
Yeah.
He's got like his marks all over that, whether he likes it or not.
Exactly, and because we talked about this when we were watching it. It was like, how old is she? And according to her biography on the Lupin.wiki fandom thing, it's like 18, 19.
Yeah, so she's 10 years younger than him.
Yeah,
and in that flashback,
really pushing it to be like she's legal.
Yeah,
she's
but
legal.
that's
legal.
Unfortunately, that is a trope of anime.
Yeah.
If they're not, it's not mentioned. Like, you see it a lot. Like, a lot of stuff is based in high school. So they're like 15, 16, but they don't look 15, 16.
There's always that joke of like the 15-year-old boy that's like muscle building.
I mean, Jotaro's 15.
Oh, fuck, he is.
Jotaro is 15 but looks 30.
Oh, no, I hate it.
Kakyoin's also 15 and he's a fucking MILF hunter.
Oh, God, no.
JoJo's characters.
Back to Lupin.
Yeah, it was not necessarily a distraction, but I feel like while we were watching it, you have to comment.
You have to comment on it for sure.
Look, if she looked older, I would have had less of an issue with it. But it was just very jarring to see at times.
Definitely.
Even though animated and everything, it can happen, I suppose. Should it?
It's almost a weird kind of American Beauty thing, right? Yeah. Where it's like,
but I feel like
you kind of have to comment on it.
American Beauty at least addresses this is fucked up.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, the whole. I'm not sure if the whole point of the movie. I've not seen American Beauty.
I think that's the point of the movie. Yeah.
But like the whole point of the movie, from what I know, is that this is fucked up.
Yeah.
Whereas Cagliostro, it's almost like it goes out of its way to say she is legal now. And it's like, this is a weird thing of anime from that time. It's like, City Hunter, which came out in the 80s. Ryo Saiba, the main character, is like very much a womanizer. And if he ends up encountering a girl who's like, underage, who's under the age of 18, he's like, oh, call me in 10 years. And it's like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Yikes.
It's a weird, just like not normal. I don't want to call it normal. It's such a standard thing in anime for me that like I don't.
Casual.
Yeah, I almost don't bat an eye at it anymore. So it took you two pointing it out for me to go, oh yeah, this is kind of weird.
Yeah. I mean, I'm specifically thinking of like the flashback, like where it becomes really apparent.
Oh yeah, where she's like 10.
Yeah, because like I mean, he looks exactly the same. As
yeah, he does.
But she very much is a child.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And like it recontextualizes all the times where he's like flirting with her.
Yeah,
sort of, like,
I mean, the first time
her.
they meet, he like properly lays it on thick, and you're kind of already you're like, oh come on, she's like 14.
Yeah.
And then you see the flashback, and it's like, wait, how old is she?
Yeah,
wait,
that's
when
you go, oh Jesus, this is way worse than I imagine.
Yeah, like that's what everyone points out when they've watched it for the first time as an adult. I think if you watch it when you're younger, you're not necessarily going to pick up on it.
Like, I don't want to go on a tangent about this, but when you're 15, you think you're the most mature thing on the planet.
Yeah.
And you're like, I could date a 30-year-old. We're basically as mature as each other.
I mean, there are people who are into that.
Look, it's like 15 and 30 is just wrong.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's right.
He's not defending it.
No, I'm just saying that unfortunately there is a whole subculture of the internet where it is a thing for kids to seek adults and adults to seek kids. I say kids, teenagers, they're still kids.
And they get put on FBI lists.
Yes, exactly.
Whenever I see it, I just feel very bad for like the younger person.
Oh yeah,
100%.
Because they don't know.
You're a child. You don't know, but you cannot be blamed for this. You think you're the best. You think I'm an adult. My mom doesn't let me go out past midnight, but I'm an adult.
Your brain has not matured enough to realize this decision that you are making is inherently disgusting and wrong. Yeah.
And you don't realize until you're like 30 yourself, but you're like, if I had to talk to a 15-year-old. Would be fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck would I talk about? Even now, I'm like, what do 15-year-olds do?
Yeah, I'm the exact same. Yeah.
Like,
you go on the TikTok, Yeah.
My worst thing is I work in a supermarket, so I have to see teenagers all the time, and I'm like, please don't interact with me, because I don't want to have to do that. Mm-hmm. I don't want to talk to you because you are a little cretin.
I've got like a little sister, and she's only like 4 years like younger than me. But even now, I'm like, what do you do? What do you and your friends do? What do the kids these days do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The TikToks.
The TikToks.
and you want to be, the person that's like, I'm in tune with the kids. It's like, so, have you been on the Wii lately?
You playing your Nintendos?
I mean, that's you because you're out of touch with gaming.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. I have a little cousin who I used to babysit, and every time I show up, I'm like, Minecraft, huh?
I mean, to be fair, that's still a safe bet.
Yeah, like, Minecraft is still pretty... Well, not as popular, obviously, but it's still pretty popular.
It's wormed its way into being, like, a cornerstone of video games at this point.
It managed to claw its way back as well.
It's like... it's on every platform. It's so widely available.
I don't want to go on a tangent.
I know, I was going to say, we've gone on such a tangent again.
Back to Lupin.
So that aside, it's...
Do we want to talk about the hooded man, or...
Yeah, the whole hooded man thing.
Look, Catholicism is a thing. They have some fucked up things, and I think when you look at ancient Catholicism, it was a thing.
Catholicism.
Catholicism.
Like, when you look at the history of it, I think it was a normal thing. At some point they had hoods, and they were not bad at the time.
Yeah, I mean,
I will
okay.
say, I saw a picture recently of like a celebration or like a ritual in like Mexico or whatever, where they have the straight up white hoods, and like a lot of people were like, oh shit, what the fuck?
Yeah, I think it is a cultural thing where it's like, to us it means something very different.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I mean...
Yeah, I mean, we seen that and we're like, oh, it's the Klan!
Yeah, like, literally, straight up, we talked about this. I think I was the one that mentioned it first, because it was like a faraway shot. You can see the outline.
Yeah, and it's like,
oh shit, the Klan.
It's so far away that you're like, I don't actually quite understand the like outline of this person yet, and then you suddenly have this close up, and you're like, oh no!
The thing is, I made a joke about that first, like a silhouette, because I was like, oh, they won't be doing that, but it kind of looks like it, so I'll make a joke. And then they immediately go to a close up, and it actually is like purple hooded Klan members, and I was like, oh fuck, I was joking.
Yeah.
But now it's very real.
We all had a moment like, is it gonna take a turn? Like, what does this nation stand for exactly?
I mean, we've seen the count.
Yeah.
I would believe that, he would have...
He would watch Tucker Carlson.
Oh. Can we just not mention
Let's not go with that.
Kremlin again.
He'd have Fox News on all the time.
Yeah, he would.
Man, yeah, he's...
in his weird fucking helicopter bike thingy.
Yeah. He has such a distinct face, like, design.
He does. It's so much like a box.
Yeah, and then you got the little goblin of his assistant.
Yeah, the little Renfield.
Yeah, who's apparently one of the monkey ninja things.
Oh, the monkey ninjas.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if I picked it up the first time, but I was very sad rewatching it because I think I forgot that all the monkey people are actual people.
Yeah.
And not just weird abominations.
What bothered me about that is, like, I'm watching it and I'm like, where's the part where they're the robots or something? Because I'm like, they're not human people. I feel like they kind of find one of the like gauntlet things, and I'm like, is this the one where they're robots? Because that's such like a generic convention of that sort of thing. So I'm like, there's no way these are human people. Not the way they're moving, the little fucking
and they
weirdos.
come the fuck out of nowhere as well. Like, it's after like the first day they're in Cagliostro. I think they've just had the scene where like Lupin explains he's been here before to like bearded man.
Yeah.
And I'm just calling him bearded man now.
Yeah.
But
the gardener. Yeah.
No. I mean.
Oh, Jigen.
Yeah. I'm just gonna call him bearded man.
That was what confused me because there's
the gardener.
There's the gardener who's a bearded man,
who also does pop up again, which is unexpected.
Yes, yeah.
But it's after that scene they come in for the night, and then they get attacked by the monkey ninja people.
Yeah, they just come out of nowhere,
and you're just like, what the fuck?
Because it's mostly their mannerisms. It's not like particularly what they look like. It's just the way they
move. Because like the door opens and they just suddenly file in the strangest way possible.
The best part though is when he's talking to Clarice in the tower, and suddenly the lights go on, and they just all shuffle in.
Yeah.
They just shuffle in.
Like, they just were, like, hidden behind pillars, and no one just heard, like, a stack of monkey people behind a pillar.
Oh, that also reminds me of when the blonde lady,
Fujiko,
yeah, when Fujiko's like, and has like her eyes in the painting because that
Oh,
convention,
yeah.
and then like the count goes, "Who's there?" Like he's just sensed her, and then we go to the painting, which you clearly see she's disappeared from now because the eye holes aren't filled, and then it just slowly goes down to the butler.
Yeah.
It's pure comedy gold.
Yeah. It's a very funny movie. The comedy timing is very good in it.
Great.
And of course, Gustav.
And Gustav, yeah.
Gustav.
I feel like that's like a nice little flair from the dub. Because like I was looking through for the sort of like character name changes, because I knew obviously that like, or I had in my mind, I was like, is this the one where they changed him to the wolf for the dub? And strangely in the streamlined dub, they changed Zenigata's name slightly. So his full name, which I don't think is ever actually mentioned, is Inspector Koichi Zenigata. But apparently in the Streamline Pictures dub, it's Inspector Kaibu Zenigata. And I'm like, why? I don't think there's any point in the movie where he even mentions his full name. They just Lupin always refers to him as I think it's G-san, and then it's like rendered as old man in the subtitles.
He does call him old man a lot.
Yeah, because in most of the other versions, it's translated as Pops, because it's like it's either OG-san or G-san or something that he refers to him as, which is like a Japanese term for
that makes sense.
Older men. OG-san would be like your granddad type thing.
Okay.
But yeah,
the OG.
Yeah, the weird thing is I can't find Gustav on the character list.
This episode is also dedicated to Gustav.
Gustav,
by the way.
Who's just such a Arnold Schwarzenegger type.
You know that's who we're riffing on.
Which is weird because, well, Terminator didn't come out until like 2 years after this.
I mean, we're talking about the dub though, aren't we?
Oh yeah, you're right, but like that's definitely who they based the voice on for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of, just voice on. I'm not thinking like physicality.
I'm forgetting the dub came out in like 2000.
Yeah, you have to keep that in mind.
But
I mean, I'd be surprised if David Hayter was doing like voice actor work in the 70s.
Oh yeah, yeah. This was still very early in his voice acting career. I think he had done Guyver, which was another anime series before that, because he was working with Animes, which is the company that dubbed it on manga's behalf. So he's been in sort of really odd, unexpected anime dubs. Like I don't think you expect him to be. Yeah, I mean, in Cagliostro.
I didn't catch that it was really him until like after, because I had to ask like, so who was he?
I think it's one of those kind of like testaments to him as a voice actor that he has got quite a good range. It's like a lot of people expect
the obviously Solid Snake voice, but that's not what he sounds like.
No.
I mean, even just recently, this is a tangent, I know, but there's a Did You Know Gaming video that's come out like 2 days ago or whatever that he actually voices. Like, he does
really?
the stuff for that, and he starts off like sort of doing the Snake voice, like as like, did you know? But then he goes into his normal voice, and you're like, wait, is that him?
Yeah.
After hearing that, by the way, it was painfully obvious that it's him.
Yeah, once you hear his normal voice, you realize it's him.
But it's fantastic work.
Yeah, very good, very very fun.
It'll be hard to watch other. I mean, I'm probably not watching dubs, am I?
I mean, I think I've only seen Cagliostro and Woman Called Fujiko in full, but I'd probably stick to watching it subtitled just because that's my default. Like, I mean, now,
I always feel like this is just like a stigma thing from being in high school and everyone being like, no, dubs are like heresy.
This is a thing, is like I feel like we've come a long way, and that like, you know, it's either the dub is good or it's not. There are very standard dubs now, and it's like that's why like I put them on a lot, and I'm like, it's fine, I guess, but I'd rather watch the very, you know, it's almost overacted, you know, in the Japanese version, but it adds a lot of, you know, extra character and emotion to what they're doing. Whereas
to me, it feels more authentic if it's subbed.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's another part of it. There are some dubs that are absolutely stellar, like, you know, Cagliostro, that almost elevate the original product to something far and above what it originally was.
I will say, I found myself, I think after this I was watching this, I was pretty like confirmed in that I do kind of like watching dubs. Like no matter what. I mean, I'm also lazy. I like not having to read and just appreciating the animation and listening. But I do like just sort of like how dubs interpret some things and like how some lines can be changed and all that, and just how they take something that's very Japanese and try and like adapt it for. Well, I mean, it's the same animation, but adapt it for a Western audience.
For a Western audience, yeah. Have we spoke about Cagliostro for long enough? Do we want to... Is there anything else you guys want to add?
It's just a very wholesome
It is a very wholesome movie.
With its faults, but I think it, again, exists. As
yeah,
a product of its time and a culture of its time. And
I'd say it's, it's very endearing.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of heart to it. And, the animation is... as simplistic as it is very well done. And music wise, like I said, the soundtrack's very good, and funnily enough, I didn't realize this until you guys had left after we watched it. This doesn't actually use the main Lupin theme at all. So there's a character theme for Lupin, which I can't let you hear on the podcast. I'll let you listen to it after it, which is used pretty much tons after, and it is a fantastic piece of music, because basically Yuji Ono, the guy who produced the soundtrack for this, is still the composer now, and he's just such a fantastic composer. It's so much of like a funk and jazz influence. It's just very nice. So anyway, I think with that we'll end the discussion.
Talked a lot. Yeah,
we've gone on many tangents. So Ghost in the Shell was the last one we watched.
Yes.
This was the one I think I was kind of scared to have you guys watch this, because I haven't mentioned it on here yet, but it's a very special movie to me. It's one of my favorites for sure. And I think it almost kind of embodies what I love about sci-fi, and so I was nervous. I was fully prepared for you guys to like come in and
that's understandable. Knowing you like something, and you're like, enjoy it, please. Don't hate me, please.
Yeah, like,
I mean, I was never gonna judge you even if I fully disliked it.
Like no, I wasn't expecting judgment, but it's like when someone dislikes
something that you hold so special,
it
can be a bit
defend it as well.
Yeah, and that was what I was like. I was like thinking, what would someone who maybe didn't enjoy this to the same capacity I did, what would they, point out? What would be the thing that they dislike? So I was like trying to search that, like when I was watching it, on Saturday in preparation for this. So I'm gonna let you guys take the floor, because I want to know, just your thoughts in general, because this movie is a lot. It does a lot, and it's only 80 minutes long, but it feels so much longer. Yes. And I think for me, that's a movie can either do that really well or really badly, and I think Ghost in the Shell lands in that. It does it really well.
I'm sorry, I hate to pull a comparison to the B movie.
Well, that's the best way to start this, isn't it?
Like, this is a movie where it felt long, but in a good way. The B movie is a movie that me and my boyfriend will watch when we want to pass time, because it feels like it's 20 minutes long, but it's a full hour and a half. Okay,
I was wondering where you were going with that.
Yeah, that is just a wild way to start out this conversation.
Because I was watching Ghost in the Shell, and I really enjoyed it, and I was like, story-wise, I'm like, oh, we're already nearing the ending. I don't think we're that far in. I'm like, oh, we are.
Yeah. it's like, I think, I don't know if I mentioned this, because like I remember we had a discussion of like, when I was describing, like I put the titles to you guys and I went through and described all of them, there were a couple that like are slower paced, and I didn't want to call them slow movies because there's almost a negative connotation behind calling a movie slow. Whereas like, and so when I was speaking to Shaun about it, when he was watching it, I landed on methodically paced. I think that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what it does is very intentionally coordinated around the story, around how the music like fits with that, because you've got the main recurring theme that shows up. That's how the movie starts, and then at any moment where the narrative dips, it's like that theme comes back, and it gives you almost like a slower moment to catch up, and so you kind of digest what's been going on.
That's what I felt like when that theme came up. It was like the time to really soak in the world, the environment, and what's just happened, or like the events so far.
Yeah, because a lot of time when you hear that, what you're getting is, well, you have the title sequence, that's where it first crops up, but then it comes up again when you're pretty much just left with a lot of landscape shots.
Yeah,
you're getting a lot of scenery of Newport City, which I always forget is the name of the city. It just sort of takes place somewhere to me.
In my head, it's always like, I mean, really, I was going to say Tokyo because
it does feel like Tokyo.
Honestly, I feel like it more like a futuristic Chicago or something like that.
I think...
I don't know where I'm getting that vibe, but
I can't remember if the live action like used Shanghai or Hong Kong as like a shooting location, and I'm like, okay, yeah, you know what, that actually fits really well.
It really does.
It fits that sort of, you know, almost a contrast of, we see a lot more of the ground level, but there is a lot sort of more like an upper level of society, so to speak.
Yeah, it's like that. To give a weird comparison, and that's kind of how I feel. It's like in the Coruscant in Star Wars, because that's a planet that's you see like in the movies you see like the top sections a lot because you were following high profile people, but it, even on just like the ground level, like you can see it in like the worst movie, Attack of the Clones, but still you can see a lot of like the more dingy sort of like new cyberpunk-esque vibes. Yeah. And even below that, there's underground sections that go on for like miles and miles and miles and miles where all the underground stuff is. So it's kind of like that, although that's an extreme, obviously, of that trope.
Yeah, because like we only really see them briefly as like you sort of see the offices and like the headquarters of Section 9, the main unit that the characters are part of, but like mainly what we see for set pieces are the market where the chase scene takes place, and then you've got like the sort of open area that's like the high-rise buildings that are very much squashed together. They've got all the sort of like signs to show you this is what's in them, and then like in the distance you see the sort of like center of the city backdropping it all, so it's like almost like it's always trying to contrast that part. And like the biggest set piece of the film at the end is taking place in like a rundown museum. There's nothing, you know, it doesn't paint a fantastic picture of the future. It doesn't spend too long going, oh, this is the contrast. It's like it's a very subtle through point, I think, of the movie.
Yeah, it's a sort of dystopian look.
Yeah,
kind of,
because it's you don't really see fully the city until the end of the movie, where you know she steps out and it's like, you know, the net is vast and infinite, and it pans up and you kind of see that the city's much bigger than what we've seen, and it does act as a stand-in for the internet, you know,
but still.
Yeah.
I just really like that. Usually when I watch sci-fi things, I'm left with a lot of questions. Like, no, I want to know. I just want to know everything. With this one, I just felt like, makes sense. It
does sort of like, you don't really long to know what happens when she leaves.
Nah, because that feels like it's something that like, it's a journey that you know she's gonna go on, but you don't necessarily need to follow her through.
Yeah,
it's very much a personal journey.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like, I think it's interesting how it portrays all of that, especially because like it uses a lot of more quieter scenes to put that across to you, because you know you have the boat scene, just one of my favorite scenes in the movie for some reason.
That is a really good scene though.
And it's like, you know, you kind of first hear the puppet master using her own voice to speak to her.
That's creepy.
It is,
That's really fucking creepy.
And then, you know, obviously later we hear them with a male voice, and I find it interesting because there's some things that I look at when I watch the movie again, and I'm like, it's interesting how this would have been written now, where the puppet master would have used gender neutral terms like they them, whereas they constantly refer to him and make a point of mentioning that he is a nickname that the developer
it's
gave
not
him.
A defined, like I talked about this. I mean, we've talked about this like ages ago before I even saw the movie, because it came up in a conversation we had once. But when I watched it again, or when I watched it for the first time last Friday, I did mention that like they call him he, but I'm gonna use the pronouns they them, because that's a lot more accurate, and I'm I'm absolutely sure if it was made today, that's what they would use.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like, so this doesn't come up in the movie, but it's in the manga and it's in the TV series that they did in 2000s for this. That the Major's kind of like bisexual, or like I say kind of. She's confirmed to be.
Yeah.
Though we'll never see her with like female partners. But I find it interesting because that's another thing I look at now, and I'm like, if that were the case now, she would probably be like pansexual or some form of, one of the other ones that doesn't see it as like a gender
like
thing.
a very binary thing.
Yeah, because the Major's whole kind of character arc is that she isn't sure that she is herself.
She's anything, really.
That she's anything, yeah. I think that's another thing I can attach to the movie, because I'm like, oh yeah, it's one of those things that I watch and I'm like, yeah, this is an existential crisis that not necessarily I can relate with, but something, I can understand.
Yeah, it's very, like, not relatable, but
it's a very human thing.
Yeah, you can get, absolutely.
It's like that core thing of like, that boat scene again. She mentions this as like your memories and your interaction with people and your everyday life are what builds your sense of yourself. But how do you, in a society where you can just be thrust into another body, how do you know that you're yourself?
Yeah,
what
like
makes you?
Yeah, because you've never seen your own
what
brain.
What is your soul? To get that term.
That's definitely it. It never comes up in the film as mentioned, but it's definitely like a journey of the soul type thing. A lot of discussion on the story because it's very narrative heavy, this movie.
Oh yeah, the story is the whole thing, obviously.
Oh yeah, definitely. The animation style was one that I was like, I don't know how you guys would react to it, because I'd say it's very particular.
I like the style.
Yeah.
I think coming out of like my initial thoughts on it was that the style was the thing that I liked the most.
Yeah. I always do find like certain close-ups of the Major, and I've been wondering recently if this is an intentional thing. Some of them are very uncomfortable, and it's not like an uncanny valley thing. It's not like that she looks too human. It's there's something about the way she's drawn and the way her eyes are drawn that just unnerve me.
To me, it seems inhumanly still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like you want to see the breathing effect and all that.
Because it's like when she does the dive at the beginning of the movie, and you get that close up of her face. It's like there's something off and human about her.
In a way, it's almost like she's made of porcelain.
Yeah.
To give it a
I mean,
I don't mean that in a bad way.
No. I know what you mean, but it's like it then follows that up in the film with the shelling sequence.
Yeah.
Which almost lends credence to that, inhuman, not quite, skin and bone. I mean, she's not. It's just, she is a full.
She's an android.
Cyborg.
They say cyborg, but I would define that more like an android.
She has a human brain, though.
Does she? I thought the brain was mechanical.
No, the brain's not mechanical.
Okay, here's what we're gonna go into a thing. I'm not sure if it's a lot of those movies. If it's part of these movies, I don't get, and I'm just too stupid. But like, there were chunks of it where it feels like the movie expected me to know things that I just didn't know about the world and the setting.
I kind of feel the same thing, but I am someone who struggles to be very focused on things, and especially when having like a subtitle instead of a dub, I tend to just miss words out.
Yeah,
and just
I can be the
forget
same. Yeah.
stuff, and then I feel very bad because I'm like, no, I want to understand stuff. I'm really trying to pay attention, but my mind wanders too easily that I'm like, I haven't read the last 4 lines. I hope they weren't important to the story.
Yeah. I can be the same. The main thing that like I want to talk about this with this specific point is that they refer to something as like the ghost. Like,
so the ghost is.
They never really or at least I didn't catch. They didn't explain what the ghost is. It's like at first I thought it was like their term for like a soul, but they bring up the term soul later on.
This is a weird thing in that it's sort of vague and it's an intentional choice, and that as far as the majority of the characters are concerned, the soul is what makes a human with full body, augmentation, a human. So the brain, as far as I remember, in the Ghost in the Shell is housed within like a titanium shell, but it's still
that might have been
physical, actual brain inside of it.
That's probably what I was thinking.
Yeah, because
they talk about cyber brains.
Yeah, so there is a cyber brain. So you get like it's encased in there, and it allows to connect to the net and stuff and all that sort of thing, because that's what the ports in the back of the net are for.
Yeah, I did catch that, and like how they can sort of think to each other.
Yeah, so that's all cyber brain stuff, and it's like the ghost is what most people within the Ghost in the Shell universe consider to be the thing that establishes someone as a human, because you can sort of copy someone's consciousness, but it won't. It'll only produce, as far as I remember, a ghost line, which isn't the same. I think. Again, like I said, a lot of these are left intentionally vague, because it's like the whole point is that it's that classic kind of 3-act structure thing where it's like, this is the normality, but then the puppet master eventually comes along and sort of
breaks
upends the idea of everything that they thought about what it is to be human, or
a living thing.
A living thing, because that's what the puppet master says when he first kind of introduces him, is that he's a life form.
They're a life form.
Yeah, he claims political asylum on the basis that he is a living thing. Yeah, it's very, very thematically heavy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but like I said, it's one of those ones that I feel attached to, because it's such a human journey, and that
it's weirdly relatable for something where you're just like, what?
And I think outside of the whole full body augmentation and like how far that version of reality is from ours, it's almost like with the way we're pursuing AI, with the way we're pursuing technology, it's almost a eerie sort of mirror of what we could become. Like it would be too easy to accidentally create an AI like the Puppet Master. Probably through the same similar methods where it's used for counterintelligence and espionage. Because that's usually where most of these technological developments come from.
Like to go into like philosophy and human history.
Well, this is another thing, is that the film's very philosophical.
So it makes sense. So like a lot of technology, especially like modern technology, was developed at its base for military use. Like
radar and basically what makes up cellular technology was based from World War II. They developed
the computers and like everything. Like Alan Turing, he was the code breaker in World War II. And that's where a lot of the groundbreaking work happened. There's this whole video. This is going into a completely different direction, but it's what I always bring up. There's this. You've watched Ahoy videos before, like YouTube, like the game documentary stuff. I sent the Polybius video.
Oh, okay, so I've seen the Polybius video. But
there's another video I heavily recommend that's like Nuclear Fruit, how the Cold War shaped video games, and that goes into a whole detail on how video games very much are shaped by the Cold War and like conventions that we have in them, like blue team, red team, and all that kind of stuff. It's an interesting video. It's like an hour long.
I never thought about that before, but that pretty much makes that scans.
I mean, even like stuff like games like Asteroids and Space Invaders, they all come from like the space race and stuff, which was from the Cold War and all that. Again, very much different to what we're actually talking about, so I'll cut back there, but I heavily recommend that video to both you, really, even if Melina doesn't play games that often.
You can say never, it's fine.
I mean, you play some
You play
games.
Minecraft and stuff with us.
We played the Fortnites.
I don't think that makes me a gamer.
No, I mean it doesn't.
No,
but it's not like we can't say you never play games, because you do.
Yeah, you do. Just because you're not a gamer doesn't mean you don't play games.
Yeah.
Back to Ghost in the Shell.
So on your note of philosophy, it's I haven't done too much reading into this, but it's certainly an interesting topic, is that the film is basically based around the philosophical theory of transhumanism. I think I mentioned this last year when we were on our other college course, because Mike brought up philosophy a lot.
Oh, a lot.
And somehow me and him ended up talking about this a little bit. Basically, it's like that, what point do we reach as humans where we're no longer human?
Yeah, like I mean, we're already at the point where like cybernetics and stuff are like a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like you can obviously prosthetics and all that, but even beyond that, and we're heading to the point where like, not to mention Elon Musk, which is I hate bringing him up. I'm so sorry, but he's apparently developing like neural link stuff.
Sure he is.
No, yeah, I know, of course, but
he's talking about
we're trying to get to that point anyway. So these talks of at what point do we become so attached to the technology, literally, do we stop being human?
Yeah, and
how does our definition of human change?
I think that's what that film what Ghost in the Shell challenges, is that like this is a society that has reached that point where it needs to start asking itself, are we still human? Does our definition of human change? Because, well,
like usually people say heart and brain is what makes a human, like a heart being the soul, brain
and
being
Ghost in the Shell, that's supplanted with ghost. Your ghost makes you human.
Yeah.
But then it's like the Major's almost like something else because she has whispers from her ghost, which I want to say is like a gut instinct thing, but from like all the sort of versions of the canon that exist, it is something else. It's like some other, thing in her mind.
Like sort of an original version breaking through, if you want to put it that way, but I'm not sure.
I don't think it ever goes that deep.
If you wanted to like give a more definite answer, but it seems they want to keep that vague enough.
Yeah, it's like the Major's backstory outside of the live action adaptation, which we're not going to discuss. Her backstory is never really mentioned or delved into. Like the farthest back we go is like when she first joins Section 9, or like how she comes to join Section 9, which is the Arise OVA things, which are not great.
Okay, we will not talk about them too much then.
So yeah, all of these things are very loosely defined, very kind of, it's intentionally left vague. I think some of it's left up to, viewer interpretation.
Yeah, like, I mean, I've just interpreted there already.
Yeah, whereas my interpretation of it is that I don't think that's the case, because we don't know anything. Nothing about the Major's history is ever explored, so I think to me it goes against that kind of idea, whereas I think the Major's meant to be a different type of figure, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm just sort of naturally grasping for answers.
I absolutely, that makes sense.
It's sort of wanting me to ask these questions and find them, so that's just my natural go-to point.
Yeah, so it's certainly an interesting film.
This is a really good movie. Yeah.
This is definitely something I'd recommend for people to watch.
Yeah,
even if
absolutely.
This is why I've been recommending it to you guys for 2 years, and you for longer.
Yeah, for me longer.
But I do think, because I don't own a television, I have to watch things on a laptop. It does, I think, watching it on a TV screen or like in a cinema even.
I would love to have seen this in the cinema, and you fucking shot me down for it.
Oh, I did, didn't I?
Yeah.
Look, that was a while. That was
I know.
a long time ago.
I wasn't expecting you to say yes.
I was in a different place.
It was showing in, I think it was the Odeon or something, in 4K. Last year.
No, it was further back than that. If it
was it end of 2020?
I want to say it was even earlier.
No, I don't think so, because it was definitely during lockdown when things were opening back up.
I don't imagine it was like,
because the 4K version didn't come out until after.
I might just be thinking wrong.
Yeah, because that was end of last year, so it would have to have been sometime around then.
If you'd asked me today and it was playing, I would have absolutely gone with
it.
Because we found it through.
I gave them my Blu-ray. I own multiple copies of this, as you can see. So I gave them my Blu-ray as like the sort of the best version that I thought they could watch. So that's how we seen it.
Okay. So, but I ended up watching it on my laptop as well, and I kind of wish I had seen it on a TV, because I feel like that was a bit the better experience.
Yeah, that was why, like, when we were wanting to watch one of them together, I know you guys weren't in the mood for Ghost in the Shell at the time, and I absolutely understand that. I kind of wish we had watched it on my TV, because I still think the 4K version's like the best version we're ever gonna get of it, and seeing it on a TV like that is a whole other experience.
Yeah. Definitely for the rewatch. I'd watch it on like a big TV.
I'd love to go see it in the cinema. I wasn't paying Odeon prices for the tickets at the time. That was why I ended up not going on my own either.
Okay.
Because Odeon's like still one of the most expensive cinemas at the moment. I think it's like £15 a ticket if you don't have any discounts. But yeah, no. So where were we? We went on a tangent there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel
Transhumanism.
Transhumanism.
We have to address that. It's very boob forward.
Okay,
we're going into this discussion.
I was going to move on to something different there for it, but yeah, it's.
We can talk about this now and then move on.
It doesn't shy away from the human figure, as I think how I describe it.
Hold on, a specific gender of the human figure though, because I didn't see many.
Yeah, I would say that.
I mean, you also don't see her bottom part.
Dude, still
the shape.
Yeah, sure, okay.
Like, it was done in a more tasteful way.
It wasn't like.
I think that's what I was trying to get at. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't. The major isn't sexualized.
It's kind of a Barbie doll effect. Like, you know what's there, but you don't see what's there.
It's not used for like sexual.
No, that's what I mean by like she's never. The major's never sexualized in any way.
But it was very interesting for me to see when she was. I don't know the terms because I also watch it Friday. Like, she goes and sees through invisible. What do you call it?
Oh, the thermoptic camouflage.
Yeah, the camouflage.
Yeah, well, she has to be what we would consider naked for that.
Well, it's a suit. It's a suit thing, yeah. Because you can see.
There's no nipples on.
Well, yeah, because like so if you like watch the movie again, you'll notice that there's like certain. She's wearing gloves in the first part, and you'll notice that like she's missing a finger for her trigger finger. I assume that's because the gun's working some sort of like fingerprint recognition type thing. And then near the end of the movie, when she like grabs the tank to like take the cover off and like her body kind of explodes up, you'll notice that there's like parts of the suit that she's wearing tears, and you can see the actual tone of her skin through it.
I think I noticed that too.
And it's because like the suit's like almost stark white, and then you've got actual skin tone underneath it. So it's like. Because she also wears the veil thing and the sort of like goggles for the thermoptic camouflage. So she's wearing something. I don't know what it is. It's futuristic technology.
Exactly.
Look, as I session out, I think the water fight, to best describe it, she was in her. God,
her camouflage.
Her camouflage, sure. And as soon as kind of the battle was over, the guy she was with
put the jacket on her. Yeah.
And, like, to me, it kind of raised the question: does she feel shame? Because as humans,
I assume it's because that would be cold.
Yeah, that's what I took as well.
Does she feel cold?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's actually a good question, because the film never really goes into like what sensations does she feel.
But the way it almost seems like if she weren't a robot, I would describe her as like sort of like a depressed character. Like she does feel, but it's tempered.
Yeah, that's very much like a recurring thing for all the interpretations of the major, is that she's very kind of emotionally reserved.
Yeah. Actually saying that, we don't even know if it's just her, or like if that's just who she is, or. I
think that's just who she is, because Bato in all the other versions is like a very emotionally robust character.
Okay.
And so is Togusa, who
I completely forgot he's also like a big.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Togusa's also like in Standalone Complex, which is the TV series. He's like a family man. He's got like a wife and kids and all this sort of stuff. So he's got like his own emotional character arc, because he's the human of this. It's like I'd say that the way that the film tries to frame it for the most part is that we are Togusa. We're the ones seeing this from the outside.
I definitely felt like I was seeing everything a lot more through his eyes than the majors.
Because he even questions himself as to why he's part of the unit, and it's like it's a very mechanical answer that the major gives him. It's like, you over specialize and you die out. It's like, isn't that? Oh wait, that's the point of the movie, pretty much. But yeah, so what was I saying? I've lost my train of thought again. I think we were talking about like, does she sense anything? Because going back to the boat scene again, when he asks her when Bato asks the major what she feels when she's in the water, she doesn't talk about the physical reaction. It's entirely an emotional
loneliness, anxiety.
All that sort of stuff, like an emptiness type thing. She describes it as, I think,
like a sort of weird, peaceful like void.
Yeah. So yeah, that's interesting because the film never actually touches upon that, and it's like when she basically bursts her body at the end of the film when taking down the tank, does she feel pain from that? What does she feel when she does that?
I feel like there would have been so much screaming if she actually felt the pain, but then again, maybe she could feel pain to an extent, but you know, your body ripping in half.
I could have possibly interpreted that because of like her training. She's been like so mentally like trained to the point where like even if she did feel that much pain, she wouldn't scream.
Well, there's actually, and I think, an episode in Standalone Complex where she full on like dies, but then, you know, because cybernetics, she's just transferred into a new body. So it's like, what would that experience, be like? Yeah, it's like, would you feel that? Would you remember dying?
It just
be like sleep,
a lot of questions for me.
I think going to the mentioning her screaming if she felt anything for that. Right after when she dives into the puppet master, the puppet master has to initialize her vocal thing. I can't remember the exact term they use, but it's maybe just speech or whatever. So I don't know if when she's doing that, if she disabled her ability to speak, one, to not alert the tank, but to also when she rips her body apart to stop herself from screaming in pain.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Which is funny because now that this is the thing I like about talking about the film, is that if someone brings up something, I realize I've never thought about it in that way before, and it sparks a different interpretation from it. 'Cause it's like there's that thing. It's like, oh, he's initiating my vocal, and then it's like the puppet master takes over. And I've never thought why did the puppet master need to initiate her speech in the first place?
Yeah, because that normally would be on.
It's like we don't control that. We just.
You can speak.
Yeah, you can speak. Whereas obviously part of her brain, it's like she can switch it on and off. But yeah, it's another thing. Is like at the end of the movie where she's talking as the little kid, and then eventually it suddenly just switches to her actual voice. I'm like, was that time for her brain to process how to
was the brain
make it sound
bring her voice back, and that was just a temporary thing, or did she consciously choose?
Yeah, that was like
in that moment.
That was what I was trying to figure out. It's like because she mentions to Bato that she's neither the major nor the puppet master, she's something else, and it's like, but you consciously chose. Well, my interpretation is that she had to consciously choose to
be the major
by choosing that voice.
Yeah, that's a good interpretation,
because she's also speaking to Bato as the major, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, like there's a part where it seems he talks to her at first like the child, but then later on he suddenly switches into talking to her as she's the major.
Yeah, it's
which did catch me off guard for a second. I was like, wait, what's happening here? And then I just sort of had to process that.
Yeah, because it does sort of the way that the scene kind of plays out. It's very much intentionally structured to throw you off a little bit.
Yeah.
But no, yeah.
I'm glad we've gotten to here, by the way, because I just want to say I did not expect this movie to end with two robots basically procreating.
Yeah, that's kind of the end of the movie, isn't it? Is that they become something else.
I mean, he straight up says to her there's no way to not say this without sounding creepy. You will have my offspring.
Yeah, because his whole their whole motivation, I guess, is that they want to procreate. That's the puppet master's
that's
motive.
The final human thing that they think will fully define them as a life form, to create offspring.
New life. That isn't just a carbon copy, which again harkens back to the major's line of over specialization leads to death type thing. The line's way more eloquent than that. But yeah, no, the music very much leads the movie along as well. I think it's a lot of the time it's very atmospherically done, where it's subtle. You don't really consciously acknowledge it, and then you have the moments where you do, which is the shelling sequence, which is also the title sequence. The middle section of the movie where it does the sort of montage. I don't know how else to describe it.
From the way it was looked, it's like she was looking at herself.
Yeah,
all over the city.
It's almost like a section of the movie where like the Major's kind of self-reflecting on who she is.
I mean, it's funny you say that because right before that, in the opening of like the boat scene, she's literally self-reflecting.
Yeah, which is
because
still
she sort of merges into a reflection.
Which every time I watch it, I'm like, why isn't that one of the shots that you see everywhere?
Yeah, that is. I remember seeing that and be like, this is a beautiful shot. This could be the movie-defining shot, right?
Yeah, where it's like everyone you see is her on top of the building before she jumps at the beginning of the movie. You then see like her. Well, I mean, it's literally the poster is like something based on like the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, and tons of other kind of screenshots of like her and the camouflage suit type thing, and I'm like, why isn't that scene one of the ones that everyone talks about? Because that scene does a lot for the thematic, over arc of the film.
Yeah, like that. It's that shot that made me think that this whole scene is sort of like the linchpin. Is that like
sort of? Yeah, because it is. That scene ends and it goes into that self-reflecting thing, and it's like you're in the second half of the movie where the puppet master shows up to upend everything. So it's like that scene is almost it's the conclusion to Act 1, but also the sort of catalyst, I'd say, for the entire what makes the movie itself, if that makes sense. I couldn't find the best way to put that for some reason.
It's fine.
But yeah, it's a hard movie to recommend to people as much as I want to recommend it to them, because it's a heavy movie to watch.
Yeah, it is.
It's a lot for people to actually sit down and
process.
Yeah,
I mean,
like someone had to ask for like, what's like a good movie recommendation, but it comes with a warning of like, do you want like to be amazed?
Like, what kind of good movie do you want?
Do you want a happy,
fun, happy movie, which is where Lupin sort of comes in, or do you want a groundbreaking?
Yeah, I mean,
I describe it as a groundbreaking.
Yeah, we haven't got to that topic yet, but it's I described it as seminal when I introduced it because it seeded a lot of other movies, especially in the sci-fi and cyberpunk genre.
Do you want a groundbreaking movie that will make you think?
Mm-hmm.
Which is where you recommend Ghost in the Shell.
Yes, which is where I recommend Ghost in the Shell. Yeah, because famously this influenced The Matrix, and well the Wachowskis in general have been chasing this as I don't know. Every movie feels like every film I've seen from them feels like it in some way aims to
all like carries back to that inspiration.
It's the same way that Ghost in the Shell for me is like for Mamoru Oshii the culmination of his career. Like I know he's done films after it, but like everything he made before it led to Ghost in the Shell. You can see something in all of them, like lead towards it. You've got the second Urusei Yatsura movie, Beautiful Dreamer, which deals with like time loops and like how to break it, and like it gets a bit strange, and it's like it's character driven. It delves into that sort of thematic, finding how to deal with a thematic curve. And then you've got like the Patlabor movies, which are almost directly in the same genre and deal with similar themes, but less so, because it deals with like, well, the first film's about like a rampant program, and then the second film is like a terrorist attack. So it's strangely, Patlabor 2 isn't very talked about, but it's very relevant today because you watch it and you're like, this is eerily not changed.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like everything he made before it led up to Ghost in the Shell. So it's I'm glad it's as influential as it is because of that, if that makes sense.
It's a good thing to be influenced by.
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
Unlike Lupin, which influenced
left its own damage on the anime.
Good movie, but what it seeded into other things with the stuff that shouldn't have been seeded.
Yeah, 100%. And with that, I think we'll draw our close, because I think we're at this point we're kind of rambling and grasping at straws.
We are really trying to keep the conversation going now.
So thank you guys so much for listening to the first ever episode of Anime Lane. I don't know what the plan for this is in the future, but as always, follow us on Twitter and stuff. Anime Lane 39 999. Not that you'll see it on screen. It's a reference to another movie. Because Anime Lane was taken, which might be discussed in another movie. It was up for selection for this episode, but you know, when we picked a couple of sci-fi ones, or when we picked the Ghost in the Shell, which was a sci-fi one, I said, you know, maybe don't pick another one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thank you so much for watching. We'll hopefully see you in the next episode. Bye.
See ya.